Thank you for listening to the P-Pod from the Somerset Safeguarding Children Partnership. Due to the nature of this podcast, themes relating to the abuse and neglect of children are discussed. Therefore, listener discretion is advised and the content unsuitable for children.
Welcome to the P-Pod.
Right then, welcome back once again to the P-Pod, the partnership podcast from the Somerset Safeguarding Children Partnership. And we decided with the time of year that it is, it's time to bring you another Christmas special, a P-Pod Wrapped. Spotify started out, I think, doing Spotify Wrapped. Now everybody is doing it, including, interesting enough, I found my Lidl Plus card the other day, which told me how many things I'd bought and what my favourite things to buy were, which was very nice to see as well. We started this tradition last year, and to the horror of the team, I decided it would be a good idea to do another one this year because as a business unit of the partnership, often we work behind the scenes. Obviously, there's Sam and myself out delivering the training, so often we are the face that people see. But as a team, we are quite a small team, but work incredibly hard in the background. And I say many of it goes unseen. So we thought it'd be a good idea to bring you today a bit of an update from the business unit, from the various members of the team, really about what we've been up to in the last year and what we've got planned and in the pipe work going into next year as well. And I'm really pleased to start off today talking to somebody in the team who is often sort of very much behind the scenes. You may not have spoken to her directly, but if you've ever had any contact, particularly to do with training, I'll pretty much guarantee that the person I'm going to be talking to is the person that you've been liaising with. And that is our wonderful Gemma, who I like to refer to as the glue that holds certainly me together and a lot of the training aspect of what we do together. So, Gemma, thank you for coming along today. I know this isn't something that you're particularly comfortable with doing. I say often you are behind the scenes, but it's nice to have you here. Often a lot of what you do goes unseen and unrecognised, but you really do so much work in the background to make sure everything runs smoothly. So thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me along. It's been a fantastic year, a very busy year, as you said, doing a lot of that background work, speaking with people, making sure everyone's booked onto the right training. So yeah, really, really fantastic year. It
has been an incredibly busy year, and sometimes it's only when you look back over what we've been doing. And it's been interesting actually talking to the team in preparation for recording this, and quite often we kind of look at it and go, oh, I don't know, what have I been up to? And it's only when you look back and you realise, wow, there's been loads.
Yeah.
I know some of those aspects you've very much been leading on as well. And I think one of the key bits that I really wanted to pick up on, which is I think one aspect that you've really taken an active role in this year, is the Rights Respect in Schools Award. Can you tell us a bit about that? I know we have kind of talked about it a bit before, but if anybody's not aware of what it is, where it came from, and importantly, sort of what you've been doing and where we are, it would be great to hear about it.
Yeah, sure. So the Rights Respecting Awards is a project that we've launched in Somerset, started in April this year and is running through until April 2028. We've got 8 secondary schools on the journey, which is absolutely fantastic. So the Rights Respecting is all about implementing the rights of children within schools and sort of adopting a community-based approach. So throughout the journey, there are different levels. You have bronze, your silver and your gold. And we're delighted to say we've got 2 schools that have already achieved their bronze and are well on the way to the silver. So it's going to be a really exciting year ahead seeing these schools progress.
Definitely. And that's through UNICEF, isn't it?
Yes,
that program. Right. And it's a sort of national program they have been trying to roll out. I know some areas like London have really embraced it. I know talking to UNICEF and talking to yourself, I think what's really exciting about the work that you've been doing is that we've got the secondary schools involved, which I know from talking to Stuart from UNICEF, he was saying quite often they'll have primaries involved, but not so much secondary. So I know they're paying sort of particular attention to Somerset and the work that you're doing around it.
Yeah, it's a really exciting journey, and we're really sort of privileged that Somerset gets to be involved in this pilot project.
So we've got 2 at bronze at the moment. So obviously they're going to continue working towards silver. Those that haven't got that yet will be working towards the bronze. So in terms of the kind of work next year, then it's sort of very much about supporting those schools, is that?
Yeah, so working closely with the schools, we're hoping to get out and go and visit the schools in person just to see the implementations they're putting in place. We have one school in particular who's very close to achieving silver accreditation, and I think we'll see a lot more schools reaching their bronze in the start of the new year.
No, I think it's great. I think it's really exciting, and I think working with UNICEF in the way that we are is it's a fantastic opportunity, and it's a brilliant program. So if anybody's not aware of it, check it out. Do have a look. There is a website. I'll post that in the links within the comments for this podcast. So yeah, check it out. Really, really exciting project that Gemma's been leading on there. So that's one thing. As I mentioned at the start, quite often you are the person in the background, sort of particularly around the training side of things, pulling it all together, looking at venues, appropriate venues, booking things, helping to support people to get on the training, making sure we're kind of meeting people's needs and that sort of thing. I know part of that, part of the work you've been doing is very much looking at the venues. And obviously we look at making sure we've got venues we run around different parts of the county. But I know you're always keen to take on board feedback that we receive about some venues, but always kind of look at actually what's the best venue that we can get for everybody. So do you want to talk about some of that work you've been doing?
As you said, feedback is very important to us, and we're always striving to find venues that are warm, comfortable, spacious, and just meet the needs of both yourself, the trainers, and all the delegates that attend. We have 2 new venues that we've introduced the later part of this year and will be using next year, which is Fleet Air Arm Museum and Haynes Motor Museum. Both very modern, spacious, really exciting venues to be using.
And also, I know the other thing that you always check out is whether they've got good biscuits.
Absolutely. Biscuits are an essential part of any training course.
And just for people's awareness, I do have a bit of a thing about biscuits. And even Gemma bought me a pen last year, was it? I think last Christmas?
Year, yes.
My pen emblazoned with, are there any biscuits? So I do hold that very dear to me. Priority for us, that's the main thing. But actually, just on that, I know, I think, again, for people to understand the amount of work that goes into that, there's a lot of scoping online, but then actually going out, visiting venues, talking with the people, making sure they can meet our needs. And you mentioned the Fleet Air Arm Museum, which it's the first time we've used that relatively recently, but it's been quite a hit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's an incredible venue. I mean, it's not very often that you go on training and walk under Concord to reach the toilets.
Yeah.
I think for me, that was a real sort of highlight, just being in an environment where you could take on so much.
And walk through Concord during the break.
Yes. Yeah.
Even more interesting. Fantastic. And in terms of, we talked about the venues, but I know the other major piece of work that we've been working on from the training team side of things this year is the Cascade packs. And that was very much like I was saying about taking on board the feedback that we got from people and the ideas that we had as a team. Do you want to talk about some of that work you've been doing?
Yes. So the move to Cascade packs has been a huge job, a real team effort. So the Cascade packs are now launched online and are updated regularly throughout the year, free to anybody who has attended the Advanced Child Protection training. And we've seen tremendous uptake in people accessing the pack. We have 438 subscribers, which is more than double what we had last year, which is just amazing.
Because that was the aim, really, wasn't it? I know, as we talked to the team, looking at actually, in terms of the Cascade packs, they're really there to support all agencies to provide those annual updates. And I think some of the concerns we had with the pack as it was, which used to be a downloadable PowerPoint you'd show, is that we produce it once a year and it very quickly gets out of date because, as we all know, things evolve so quickly, legislation, guidance changes all the time. And so that was one thing about how do we have a dynamic tool. But the other side of it was very, very much about, like you just mentioned, helping organisations to be able to access the training. And particularly one of our focuses over this last year as a whole business unit has been better supporting the voluntary sector organisations, some of which are very small, run by volunteers, and actually that cost being prohibitive to them. So yeah, as Gemma says, it is now live. It's online. And if anything major changes, any changes to legislation, guidance, updates, anything like that, we update the online version there so you can access it and always guarantee you've got the most up-to-date information on it. But I think just to kind of echo there, Gemma, sorry, you were saying about 400 odd?
Yeah, 438 subscribers, and we're seeing new applications coming each day for it.
Fantastic. No, it's great stuff. So yeah, if you have been on the advanced training, if you've not accessed the Cascade pack, you need to register, get a membership to access it, and you can access it for as long as your certification, the 2 years and last. There's an education pack, there's a non-education pack. Check it out, use it, it's there. We want to make sure that everybody has access to the most up-to-date information and all the local information and guidance that you need there. So yeah, thank you for all that work you've been doing on that. It's something that just kind of appears, but again, a huge amount of work to make sure it works properly and it's fit for purpose and added benefit for everybody, I guess, is the main thing. Moving on to next year then. We've talked a little bit about Rights Respect in Schools Award, which we're obviously going to be continue to work on. But what have you got on the horizon for next year?
So as with every year, we'll be launching another Forum Week. We'll have our Forum Week running in June. I
forgot to ask about the Forum. Of course, again, when you look back on things, you completely forget, don't you, until you kind of think back on it.
It's been such a busy year. So this year we've had 2 fantastic Forum Weeks. We had our Children, Violence and Vulnerability Forum Week in June, which we saw 322 people attend, which is fantastic. And we had great guest presenters from the Youth Endowment, Avon Somerset Police, the NWG, Forensic Camps. So a real wealth of knowledge coming in to share experience and give support to people. And then most recently, we've had our December Forum Week based around tackling child sexual abuse. And we had an outstanding 531 attendees.
Fantastic.
Which is just absolutely fantastic. And we were graced with the presence of the National Panel, Bernardo's, the NSPCC, Lucy Faithful Foundation, some really big names coming in, sharing their resources, sharing their knowledge. And all of our forum weeks can be found on the SSCP website. So if you've not been able to join us, you can check out the week there.
Beautiful little plug there as well. Nice. I like that. So you're a professional. There you go.
It's the jacket.
Yes. And as like I mentioned, actually, at the end of the last forum week, we've already started to looking at the next one in June, because we plan these 6 months in advance. We start the work planning these. And again, as I said to Gemma recently, I'm primarily the one that turns up and tries to look pretty, whereas Gemma is the person who really kind of does the legwork around it, and lots of liaising with all those amazing agencies. Like you say, the last one, we had the National Panel, the NSPCC, Lucy Faithful Foundation, Centre of Expertise and Child Sexual Abuse, Bernardo's. Prior to that, again, we had UNICEF and all sorts of people. So really kind of liaising, building those relationships with our partners nationally, and then doing all that legwork to organise all the briefings, get all their presentations in, everything else. So yeah, a huge thank you from me for all the work you do around that, because I say it's only a week, 1 hour a day for a week, but there's a massive amount of work that goes into that, of which Gemma does do the bulk of that.
Thank you.
So yeah, so we've got our forum weeks for next year, which I'm not going to go into because we're just early days, haven't we? We've got our next team meeting to start looking at what the theme we might look at for that one, looking at the learning that's coming over this last year. But yeah, very much starting to do that work now, isn't it? Just starting to look at that.
Yeah, and as you say, a lot of work goes into these forum weeks. So we do start that planning early, and yeah, it's an exciting journey getting ready for the forum weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I think throughout the year, with the one that's just passed and one previous, we're upping nearly 1,000 people attending over those two events, which is fantastic. So if anybody did come along to those, thank you so much for coming along. It really gives it value, makes it worthwhile. Again, thank you to all our presenters that came along to that one. And as Gemma beautifully plugged there earlier, if you didn't join it live, don't worry. They're all the recordings are on our YouTube channel and on the Forum Week pages on the SSCP website, so you can check them out there. So Gemma, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight?
I think that's it, Steve. As I say, it's been a fantastic year, and I look forward to supporting people on their training journey as we go into 2026.
Thank you there, Gemma.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Coming up next then is another member of my team. And for anybody who has ever been to any of the SSCP's training, you are likely to either have met myself or met our wonderful training officer, Sam. And once you've met her, you'll never forget her. So, Sam, good to see you here. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you, Steve. Nice to be with you today.
Ready for a break?
Yes, very much ready for a break.
I think we all need it, don't we? Because it's been a busy year. So what have you been up to?
Oh, Steve, it's been incredibly busy. I don't think the training team have stopped. Yeah, it's been a really exciting year. We've had some great moments. I'm going to go through a couple with you. If we start with around trauma informed, it's been absolutely incredible. We've done some train the trainer material. We've been really great in getting 5 trainers trained up now altogether. So we've got some great other co-deliverers on that. We've got one from public health and 2 from children's services coming in to deliver it. And we've both run the sessions with them. They seem really happy with the content and feeling confident within it. So we're going to continue rolling that out of next year as well. And it continues to be really engaged from people out there as well, getting involved. So that's a really positive stance on Trauma Informed.
I think so. I know we were really pleased with that. So it's been a year that we've been running it, which has flown by. I can't believe it's been a year now until we looked at it the other day. And I think it's probably fair to say when we first looked at it, we thought actually, that there are lots of bits of trauma-informed training going on across partnership agencies. And so I think primarily we're sort of looking maybe more people from local authority coming onto that. But actually it's been a huge mix, isn't it? Which has been really positive.
Yeah, absolutely incredible mix. And the conversations that have come from it have been so passionate and just the learning experience coming from each and every one, taking different bits away, has just been, I think, even more than we could even imagine would come from that training. And like you said, we've had 124 people that we've trained on that in the last year, which I just think is incredible, considering as we thought it would be such a smaller minority of people attending.
So I think it's great, and I think it's really interesting moving forward with kind of looking more and more, expanding that out and working much more with adult services as we go forward with it as well. So yeah, watch this space with this one. But if you haven't been on the training, please come along. We would love to see you on it, either ourselves or our colleagues that we've trained up, because there's been really positive feedback from that. It'd be great if you can come and join us on that one as well. So we've done that side of things. And then I guess in terms of training, a bit more in the background, be doing lots of work on updating the training material and also kind of developing more e-learning this year. So, and I know you've been taking quite a lead with that, certainly in terms of like the Cascade packs and what have you. So do you want to give some updates on that?
Yeah, so we've had some great chances this year to explore different ways of working, different ways of engaging. So we've done a lot of work in the background with some new software to just make the e-learning a little bit more engaging and interactive for people. So we've obviously updated our new way of our Cascade packs, which hopefully lots of people have already explored and started to deliver in-house, making that a little bit more accessible and continuing to be updated throughout the year, which is something that you and me have taken on and just making sure we're keeping up to date, which has had some great feedback from people. And then the e-learning, we've done the education pack and the non-education pack of the e-learning, just being able to just spice it up a little bit, get people a little bit more engaged, helping them work through case studies throughout it. So it's not just that click that you go through on e-learning for most people.
And again, lots of things in the pipeline for that one. It's fair to say it's been new for both of us this year, trying to learn how to use the new software. We're all starting from scratch, but I think it has allowed us to have lots of ideas moving forward with it, and certainly in terms of the case studies, scenarios, and maybe bringing in more video content to that, bring it to life a bit more. Also a bit around the choices you make and the impact that it has. So again, watch this space on that one, because I think it's quite exciting, some of the ideas we've got coming up. All right. So you said we've been busy. So I know you've done a bit of work before today to have a look at that. So what have you pulled out in terms of some of our stats?
Yeah, we have been so busy, and I can't believe we're already in December. The year has flown by. So we have trained overall 2,815 delegates across the year, which I think is a huge achievement for us as a training team, but also our other guest facilitators that we have on our majority of other courses. It looks like October was our busiest month, Steve. We trained 338 delegates just in that month alone. And, we've added on, I think it's 6 in total, additional courses just to meet the demand of people coming in. We've also had the great ability of adding spotlight sessions this year, focusing on different contents where they're those 1 hour real interactive sessions. They've been greatly uptaken by people. We've got content such as like the voice of the child, what is and what if, so really helping people understand that next journey, following on from child protection, public law outline, going from those bits. I think it's really great that people are getting on board. You've also run a couple yourself with engaging fathers and male carers, some really great uptake within those sessions. And I think it's really nice that we're going to continue hopefully running those into next year, getting different themes of what people want.
And you mentioned the stats there about 2,800 people. Obviously, we've had the forum weeks, the 2 forum weeks. And I think from the stats I've got here, we've had nearly 900 people joining us for those forum week webinars as well. So I think in total, we're looking at about 3,600 people in the last year or so.
Bonkers.
Which has been great, though. It's been wonderful. And I think there's been some, and what I would say for anybody listening to this, for anybody that has been on our training over the last year, it's been an amazing year having, I think, obviously, if we're delivering the training, people see Samurai sort of standing there and delivering it. But I think what's great afterwards is that, Sam and I always come away, we always kind of look at evaluations and take on bold feedback and look to evolve things. But also, I think more and more we're coming back to saying, do you know what? It was such a good session the other day. There was so much conversation going on, some really good debates. And, there was a really good conversation about this, and it really sparked that going on. And it, for us, for anybody listening to this, for us, it brings it to life so much when we come away and going, do you know what? That was brilliant. There was so much conversation going on and some really good engagement, really good conversation, great questions, that got asked. And that's what it's all about. And that's what we always say with the training is that's what it's all about. Sam and I are there to help facilitate it. But in terms of the real learning, the richness of the learning, it comes out from the multi-agency partners all working together and bringing that to life, which is just wonderful to see.
When people come up to me at the end and go like, oh, thank you for that. It was really great. I go, no, thank you. Because, as we say at the beginning of most of our training, we can only bring so much. And without those incredible people in the room sharing their passion, their joy, and also the challenges that they face to help us, strengthen our partnership agreements, I think without them, the training wouldn't be what it is. And I completely agree with you. Just being able to have them feel empowered, confident to carry on and go out and do the things and that they do to make a difference to children and families. I think that makes our job so magical because we get to share that joy with them within it. So yeah, absolutely. It's been an amazing year within that, and hopefully will continue to be as well.
So moving into next year now, I know between now and then we have Christmas, which for anybody who knows Sam, Sam's been starting to celebrate Christmas from, well, I'd say about January the 1st last year. So we are going to get through Christmas, Sam's favoritist time of the year. But after that, moving into the new year, what have you got on the horizon?
Yeah, so there's lots of things coming to us after Christmas, after we've had a very good jolly knees up and a break that we deserve. Yeah, so we're going to continue our development of our learning journey with the new software, looking at different e-learning contents that we can have. Also, I think it's fair to say that we've just done the basics of our e-learning journey as well. So I think it's about how we can develop it even further, get even more involved, make it just as accessible for everybody as well. And I think, we've learned a huge thing about inclusivity throughout the year and how we can develop our resources, how we engage with people. So I think there's a lot of additional things that we can take on board, making it as engaging as possible for everybody, as well as that tech journey, just really ensuring that we do amend things as soon as possible, keeping everybody up to date. Plus, not to mention, as we've said throughout this, the end of this year, there's going to be lots of changing coming within guidance and legislation. So I think there's a big thing for all of us about taking on board that new learning, the new ways of working, and making sure that we embed it in our resources so that all the delegates out there feel knowledgeable, up to date, and confident within those changes. And so it's just making sure that we're delivering that in a way that everybody just feels that they can do their jobs with the best of their ability.
Well, Sam, I know I will speak to you before, but yeah, thank you for all the hard work you've been doing over the last year, and hope you have a fantastic Christmas, which I'm sure you will.
Thank you, Steve, and Merry Christmas to you, and Merry Christmas to everybody we've had the pleasure of training up over the last year and coming into contact with. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you on further training in the future.
Absolutely. I'd like to echo that as well. Now, moving on down my naughty or nice list, I'm pleased to see somebody else on my nice list, and that is our wonderful Nicole, who is the SSCP's Business Unit's Project Support Officer. Nicole, thanks for joining us along in the P-Pod today.
Thank you very much for having me, Steve. It's great to be back on.
Lovely, yeah. So, yeah, you're a veteran now. More than once, you're a veteran. That's what it is. Well, I know quite often you are busy in the background, not quite so much a sort of public face, unless you're listen to this, any members of any of the subgroups of the partnership, because Nicole quite often works in the background, but pulling lots of bits together, some of the projects that we do, but also very much part of working and supporting many of the subgroups of the partnership. And so, Nicole, with that, there are a couple of bits that you do that are a bit more public facing, but one of those being obviously the learning bulletin that goes out. You're kind of busy each month pulling together. How's that been going?
Yeah, it's been great. We have over 11,000 subscribers now,
Wow.
which is brilliant to see. Lots of different agencies, lots of different people all across Somerset being involved. It is a great monthly resource for safeguarding updates, and we try to regularly link in with different agencies to see what they've been up to and how we can share that learning across Somerset.
Brilliant. And I know one of the other kind of aspects of your role is around resolving professional differences. And that's something that we, obviously in training, we talk about quite a lot in terms of resolving professional differences. If you have concerns about something that is being done or isn't being done by another agency, which is placing a child at risk of harm, we have the Resolving Professional Differences Protocol. And if everyone's ever had to use step 3 of the protocol, that comes into the business unit, and the person it comes to initially is Nicole. So you have had that oversight of things, and Nicole is here doing a lot of the legwork of contacting people and making sure that agencies are linked in together to try to resolve things. So what's that look like over the last 12 months or so?
Yeah, so far since January, we have received 26 resolving professional differences forms. The majority of those have been at stage 3. However, we have had a few where they're a little bit unsure of where to go next, and we've provided some advice. So on that basis, then we would just link them in with the correct person or go back and identify what they need to do before it would come in to us. However, the majority of them are at stage 3 when they do come into us. We have seen an increase over the last couple of years in terms of forms submitted. In the previous period, from January to December 2024, we had 17 in total. So we think that this is as a result of increased understanding of the process. And we have also seen more variability in the agency submitting the forms and the receiving agency, which previously wasn't so varied. It was generally aimed towards one or two agencies.
And I think just picking up what you're saying about the numbers and how we've seen quite an increase. And it's interesting because often people can see that as quite a negative, saying, well, there's more disagreements between agencies. But actually, I think if we go back quite a number of years, we saw quite high numbers, but the majority of those were not appropriate. They weren't step 3. There hadn't been any attempt to resolve things up until that stage. Whereas, like I say, now we are seeing them come through, but actually they are appropriate and they followed the process, which is brilliant. And we're seeing as real positive, like I say, really as a way of promoting that and encouraging agencies to use the RPD process there, because it is there for a purpose. And it's really important that we do make sure when there are disagreements between agencies that those are resolved effectively. So yeah, I think it's been really positive moving forward that way. So I think the other thing I wanted to pick up on is obviously we all kind of take on various aspects of work and projects and things. And I know there's something that you've taken on in this last year is the trauma-informed practice side of things. Do you want to talk us through that, some of the work you've been doing?
Yeah, of course. So within the last year, we have held several trauma-informed steering groups. We have also launched the new trauma-informed website. So that is going to be a resource hub, which will be full of information shared by different agencies, any upcoming training and any other learning opportunities that are available. We have also been looking at launching the Trauma-Informed Pledge. Currently, we have signatures from Duncan Sharkey, who is the Chief Executive from Somerset Council, Jonathan Higman, the Chief Executive from Somerset Integrated Care Board, Chief Constable Sarah Crew from Avon and Somerset Police, and the Chief Executive from Second Step. So this is really great to see that many big names in Somerset are signing up to the pledge and committing their agencies to becoming trauma-informed. We are hoping to broaden the signatories in 2026 to include lots of other agencies across Somerset, because I think it's really great to see lots of different agencies signed up and committing.
I think that's a really important point around the pledge, because we've said from day one in terms of trauma-informed practice, it's not a case of frontline practitioners doing a course and coming away as trauma-informed. It is not about that. And for anybody that's listened to any of our previous trauma-informed special podcast episodes as well, it's very much about a systemic approach from top to bottom through absolutely everything an organisation does, from their policies, procedures, support for staff, the way that rooms are laid out, whatever it is right the way through. So I think this is a really important step moving forward is like I said, we've got the heads of these services signing up to this pledge, saying actually as an organisation, this is what we are doing and this is what we are committing to us becoming and working on moving forward. So yeah, I think it's a really positive move. But like you say, we've got a bit of work still to do, absolutely on that. And I think it's one of those things, if we're going to, as a county, really adopt trauma-informed practice as a solid way of being, it is a lot of work, but it is a really important step forward. So with that, you kind of talked about looking to have more people sign up to the pledge in 26. So in terms of moving into 2026 then, what have we got? So any work kind of developing around the trauma-informed side of things?
Yes, so we are re-establishing a new trauma-informed steering group. We have a new membership, which has been identified as the most appropriate people from organisations to attend. Another change that has been made is that we are including adults, as it is really important that trauma-informed is embedded across the lifespan. This is something that we've had some attendance previously, but it's great to see a member identified to attend moving forwards and hopefully drive the work forward from their perspective as well. We are hoping to hold an in-person event in early 2026 to launch the pledge, reiterate the importance of trauma-informed practice. And another thing that we are considering is working with other areas in terms of their journey on becoming trauma-informed. We have had conversations with Lancashire and Plymouth to identify any areas of support. They both have some great resources that are available. So we are trying to understand how we in Somerset can adopt any of their approaches, if there's anything that we can learn. And they've been really helpful in providing information to us in terms of how they have got to where they are currently.
Yeah, definitely. And it's great. And we worked with Plymouth fairly early on in this journey, and in terms of the development, like you say, of the Trauma Informed website. So it's great that we're expanding that out, because it's brilliant, I think, to gain and learn from each other and from best practice. I think it's been really positive seeing that right the way across the country, really, partnerships very much working with each other and sharing good practice if it's there. Yeah, really good to hear we've got that developing moving forward. So I think in terms of things on the horizon for next year, though, there is one thing that we haven't spoken about yet, which is possibly the most exciting thing to be happening in 2026 for you, which I only found out a couple of days ago. But Nicole, what is the most important thing for you happening next year?
Yeah, so I am expecting a baby in June next year, which is very exciting, but also very scary.
Brilliant. This is brilliant news, isn't it? And yeah, we are so excited for you. Can't wait for baby Steve or baby Stevie to come into the world. I'm going to keep on with that one, until you do go off maternity leave eventually. So yeah, a huge congratulations, Nicole, from myself, and I know from the whole of the team. And I'm sure from everybody listening here, we wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nicole. Then take care of yourself, and we'll speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Moving swiftly on now then, I'm really pleased to be introducing you to my colleague, Rebecca, who is the Policy and Projects Manager. Rebecca, I know you've recorded our People Wrapped last year, but for anybody that hasn't listened to that, do you want to just explain what your role is really to begin with?
I'm the Policy and Projects Manager, so I help and assist or facilitate the partnership in creating the new policies, protocols, publications, those resources that support the multi-agency. That is based on the work that we do around quality assurance. So based on the learning framework, we do audits, insight visits, all that kind of work to establish learning, where things have gone wrong or where things are going right, listening to practitioners, listening to the voice of children and young people and families as well, and bringing that all into the partnership understanding and then turning that hopefully into really useful and productive resources to support those families and to support significantly those practitioners in supporting those families. And then a bit more of the project side of things is where we do a little bit of ad hoc work in a way, I guess, and we get to under different themes that we've got through learning as well, and through inspection outcomes, we can do some individual project work as well.
In a nutshell, a question that I'm often asked is, how do you actually know that you're making a difference? How do you pick up on these things, or what, how do you actually evaluate what you do? So I know a lot of your work is about actually, how do we know? Looking at the data, working with our partners, and actually about that quality assurance as well. Actually, how do we know that all this work that's taking place actually makes any difference at all, isn't it?
And that's where the audits and insight visits and things like that come in, and talking to practitioners and significantly listening to children, young people, families and practitioners and senior leaders as well, listening to everybody really, and across the partnership. And we are in a unique position, I think, as well, where we get to listen to and advocate for partners across everybody that works with children in Somerset. We don't just work with one particular group of people. We don't just work with social workers or just with health or just with police. They might be our key partners, but we also listen to and work with as much as possible the voluntary and community sector, the commissioned services, the faith sector where we can as well as those that work all over the place, education as well. So it's, so we're in a really unique position, I think, and are really honoured frankly, to be able to listen to all of those voices and sort of advocate for those people as much as possible. And that's kind of the facilitation role of what the business unit does, is to try and make sure that those voices are still high on the agenda in some of those meetings and those conversations that we have. And we bring that to the development of those resources and make sure that we are listening to everybody.
So you mentioned audits just a moment ago, and I know that's been quite a focus of yours, developing those over the last year or so. So could you kind of explain what the audits are, what they're about, what you do?
Yeah, so the audit group is a group off of our quality assurance group, and it is made up of multi-agency partners. We come together and we look at outcomes from learning reviews, our outcomes from quality assurance, pieces of work that we do, and that leads us down to a theme, and that theme is then directed towards a brief. So it might be looking at a specific area of focus that comes out of a learning review, for example. It might be non-accidental injuries with babies. It might be that we want to do some work around understanding or benchmarking what our understanding across the partnership is of working with fathers and male carers, for example, and then we will build an audit around that. But it's a multi-agency audit, so it's not a single agency audit where you're perhaps looking at just an individual service response or benchmarking maybe against what a service has in their policy or their process, for example. But it'll be looking at the wider angle from a multi-agency perspective, so looking at how it works between, like, sharing information, how that works between different agencies. If, for example, in the example there about non-accidental injuries, and particularly for young babies with male carers, it might be looking at things like how midwifery work with parents, significantly with male carers and fathers, and how that information is then shared as well with GPs, or if there are any concerns with the wider partnership, if they're engaged in any work with that family as well. So that's the kind of space of where multi-agency audits come in. And they don't necessarily have to be just audits on casework either. They can be focus groups, they can be practitioner learning events, it could be surveys as well, it could be a mixture of those things. So there's lots of different ways that we can find out information, see what's going on, benchmark, or see where there's progress and improvement as well. So we can do something again 6 months, a year, 2 years later and see how that's progressed.
And I know you've been involved as part of that with insight visits as well. What have those been looking like?
Yes, the insight visits are great. For those that don't know what an insight visit is, it's you may know what a mystery shopper is within kind of like supermarkets and things, where they go in and pretend they're a customer and they sort of go around and ask people questions. Are they polite? Are they, answering your questions? Are they finding the thing in the aisle that you're looking for? So it's not massively dissimilar to that in some respects, with a little bit of kind of like that audit thrown into it as well. Again, it'll be based on learning. It'll be based on a theme that we're looking into. We're just in the middle of a 2-year cycle looking at serious youth violence and child exploitation. So we've done 2 areas so far. We've done health. We went into the emergency departments, and we have done children's social care as well. So we went into 2 teams across Somerset. What we do is we go a week before, we send a survey to the ops manager kind of levels of teams. We ask them the questions about what kind of training they put in place, what are the policies in place, what the guidance is around a theme, what their expectation is kind of, I guess, around their staff knowledge and confidence, and what support they put in as well. And then we'll go in and do the insight visit itself, which is, as I say, like the mystery shopper. It's only a few questions. It's no more than sort of 5 questions, because obviously people are very, very busy. They're in the middle of their day, particularly in ED, very busy environment to sort of jump into and grab a nurse and sort of ask a question.
I was going to say, when you're talking about secret shopper parallels there, you don't sort of put your leg in a plaster cast, do you, and sort of hobbling to NA and kind of pretend that you're sort of needing emergency care and seeing if they're responding to you politely?
No, we're not that secretive. So, no, they definitely know that we're coming. They are briefed we're coming, but they don't know what the questions are that they're going to be asked. And the point of that is to do that kind of triangulation, ask frontline practitioners about what their level of confidence, knowledge, what kind of support they might want in place. Do they understand how to and where to find resources and things that are in place to support them? And then we all come together afterwards and we sort of put those 2 pieces of information together. We do a bit of analysis around it. This is all done in one day as well. So it's very quick fire. It's very sort of good, honest kind of responses. And at the end of the day, we present those findings to those operation on leadership at the end of the day for whatever partner we've gone into. We triangulate those responses. So, for example, I don't know, if they're saying that there's lots of resources available to them, but actually when you talk to frontline practitioners, they are not aware of those resources, then an action off of that might be then how do we actually make those resources more available to them? It could be that they're just not accessible or presented to them in an accessible way. It might be that they're not in a place that's that accessible. So it would be actions that then come off of that. Maybe they need a bit more training put in place. Maybe the ops managers or the managers of those staff need to do kind of like a supervision or a team day or something like that around the subject. So there's all kinds of actions that can come off of that as well. And it's an opportunity. It's not like a waggy finger kind of exercise. It's an absolute opportunity for frontline practitioners to be heard. And I think that's what we've heard from practitioners in the 2 sites that we've been to so far, is that they really appreciated the opportunity for us to go in and listen to them. It's completely anonymous. We go and grab people at random. So, and we don't name who they are. So it's a completely anonymous process, and it offers practitioners that opportunity to speak out and just share their thoughts, their knowledge as well. So I think it's been a really good success so far, and we're continuing it into 2026. We'll be doing education next, and then police at some point towards the end of next year. So yeah, I'm very excited to continue that. It has been, I think, really successful, and I think everyone who's been part of it has really enjoyed that process. That
triangulation is so key, isn't it? Because we can be in a meeting with senior leaders saying, yes, we've done X, Y, and Z, and it's all great now, and we've sort of cracked this, and we've tick that action off. But unless that's actually having that ripple effect right the way through to frontline practitioners, then actually it's slightly pointless. So making sure, like you say, it's triangulated and it's clear right the way throughout the system that, yes, this is in place, it's embedded, people are aware of it or not. And if not, okay, that's fine. That
Exactly.
informs us something that we need to do some work around that.
It's the bit where you said at the beginning about how do we know what we're doing is having an impact, is having an effect. What does that look like? It's really, really hard sometimes to see a direct correlation between something you do and then an outcome. But I mean, this is one which we can look at because it's looking at practitioners' knowledge. So it's a kind of direct cause and effect area that we can look at the impact of. So yeah, it's been really successful so far.
Talking about when we're on the subject of audits, I know the other audit that you've been very heavily involved in this year, building on from last year, is the Section 11 audit, which if anybody's not aware of Section 11 audits, could you explain what they are?
Yeah, so all agencies that work in Somerset with children are required to do a Section 11. We do a Section 11 on, I think it's around 34 of our partner organisations. It's a 3-year cycle that we work with the region. So we work across the Avon and Somerset region because there's a lot of sort of cross-border agencies that across that area that we work with, significantly, obviously, Avon and Somerset Police. So we don't want to duplicate the process for a lot of those agencies. So we've collaborated for as long as I've worked on it in this process. And 2 years ago now? So we're in the 3rd year, but 2 years ago we came together and decided to do a 3-year process, which held, again, some of that we were just talking about with insight visits, the opportunity to triangulate information and then come to the end of it and talk about sort of like what we've learned and the strengths-based kind of process. So in year 1, which was 2 years ago, we did a full self-assessment audit. So that is a strategic level questionnaire survey, asking them about what training they put in place, what policies are in place, and it's benchmarking, it's checking against all of those requirements under legislation. So it's all linked to our statutory legislation. In year 2, we then do a practitioner survey. So again, it's a bit like the insight visit. It's an opportunity for practitioners to then respond to kind of the same set of questions, but obviously tailored to a practitioner. So we can then sort of check. So we asked, is all this in place? Are they aware of the policies? Are they aware of all of these things that their agencies have put in place? So that gives us some perspective on frontline practitioners' awareness and understanding, again, if there's any actions that need to be put in place by agencies to help practitioners, support them in their understanding, their learning, their access, their training, all of those kinds of things. And then in year 3 that we've just done, we brought the whole region together in one event, which was really exciting. We held it at Portishead HQ Police. And we came together to have a strengths-based workshop with senior leaders from across all the different partners to talk about, what some of the key learning was from across those 2 years and celebrate some of that achievement. And also the opportunity to share learning. So there might be something really great going on in Bath and North East Somerset or North Somerset or South Gloucestershire that's really good learning for Somerset, and we can share that information and work together. And it's been really great working with the region. Everybody across the region is fantastic. Everyone is so open to working together. And yeah, it was just an absolute pleasure doing that 3 years. And so obviously we've learned a lot in that 3 years. It's the first time we've done it, and we'll be sort of tweaking it, making sure it's as good as possible, and starting again next year with the year 1 again, self-assessment. So yeah, but it was a really exciting event. It's so nice to sort of bring everyone together, but also to celebrate some really amazing work that's been done across the whole region by all of our agencies, all frontline practitioners. There's just some amazing breadth of work and improvement that's gone on over the years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was, I was up at that event as well. And it, like you say, it was really nice getting everybody together. And like you say, having very open and honest conversations, say, actually, these are the bits we feel are working really well. We want to celebrate, we want to promote. These are the bits actually we've still got to work on. We've got to, and how we can work across a region with that. And it's been really nice, I think, actually, over the last year or so, working closely with our other partnerships of the other Avon and Somerset area and sort of really building, I think, much closer working relationships with them as well, which is great because it's we're all doing the same thing for the same reasons. So it's all about supporting each other as part of that. And
absolutely, yeah,
essentially kind of working as one larger team across a much bigger area, which is great. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Fantastic. Yeah, no, great group.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think just moving on a little bit then, I know in some of the other aspects of your work that you lead on is partly the website and partly some of the campaigns and projects and things like that we talked about. So should we start off with the website, some of the changes that have been going on there?
Yeah, so the website, it hasn't massively changed this year, but there are changes coming, I guess is the thing. We've added a new resource this year, which is safeguarding in sport. So that went through, was launched during the child sexual abuse themed forum week. Our lovely friends over in SASP, they significantly contributed towards that. They do a lot of work in Somerset around safeguarding in sport. So we've put that one in place. We've talked as well about some new resources maybe to support online safety as well. So these are not like that high level safeguarding, like things, the pages that we have around child exploitation, etc., but they are useful links, useful resources, knowing who the people are to go to locally, what the national campaigns are, and what's available to them. And again, we did a really good forum week on online safety last year, so we can pull on all those resources and all those great contacts that we made last year and put that in one place and put that as a support resource as well. So that'll be things like, safety online, safety using mobile devices, and this, it's such a key topic, isn't it, for parents and for young people. And I think there's a lot of need for that. They're always really popular topics when we talk about them in safeguarding.
So I know, leading on to that as well, you've been involved in quite a number of the campaigns that have been taking place over the last year. So do you want to fill us in on some of those?
Yeah, so nicely sort of leading on from talking about the online resource that we're looking at, online safety. We did the Safer Internet Day in February. We supported that for obvious reasons. It links nicely to that forum week and the work that we're doing to support understanding of safety online. And then we moved on to the NWG's Stop CE Day. That was the 18th of March. It's every 18th of March. Obviously, we'll be doing it again next year. Then we did the Knife Crime Awareness Week. That was the 19th to the 25th of May and was with the VRP. So there was some work there around working with the police, working with some of the other groups that the VRP work with, doing some days of action as well, where they go into schools and colleges and things, and they work. I think they did one as well in Bridgewater Town Centre as well. So they do some disruption activity. They go and talk to the community. There's some great work done there as well. And we had our Non-Accidental Injury Awareness Week, which is the first week of July each year. That's run by the SSCP. It's the only one that we sort of started ourselves. And that was off the back of the non-accidental injury work that came through on learning reviews, predominantly through the kind of lockdown period.
And sorry to interrupt, and that's looking at reducing harm to very young babies, which locally and nationally, we saw a massive spike in, particularly coming out from COVID or over COVID and coming out from COVID. So we wanted to be a bit proactive about that.
Yeah, and we call it Nurturing All Infants. We're trying to change the NAI to, instead of non-accidental injury, a more positive spin. So we've got Nurturing All Infants. And it's about, exactly as you say, raising multi-agency practitioner awareness around what a non-accidental injury is, the factors that can increase that risk, and provide that kind of practical support for practitioners and clear signposting to resources and services. And again, we did a week of that this year. It's predominantly online, and we do some articles on our website as well. We've got a webpage as well, resource around supporting that. This year we did it for the second year, and we were hoping to see some increases in engagement of both the partners sharing resources as well, but also the engagement obviously of practitioners and people engaging with the campaign. And we saw a huge response this year. It more than doubled. So it's sort of building on it, isn't it? You've got to sort of build that momentum. Again, we'll be doing it next year, first week of July, so look out for that one. And that supports as well later in the year the Icon Week that we support, which is injuries to babies and non-mobile children as well. But it's really, really key piece of work that we try and promote as far and wide as possible across the multi-agency. And then we have got coming up, actually, not far off, in February this year, we're going to start supporting the Stop It Now Lucy Faithfull campaign. So that's the 2nd to the 27th of February in 2026. So watch this space. There's going to be loads of resources going out about that. But even around that, there's lots of other campaigns that we support. There's 16 days of action going on at the moment around domestic abuse on the run up to Christmas. And there's all kinds of ones that we promote on our website from a multi-agency kind of point of view to support our practitioners. So those are the sort of bigger ones that we are more actively involved in this year. And that's not to say it's the only ones we will. We're sure we'll add more to our roster as the time goes on, working with our partners. And all these brilliant campaigns, they're all very, very much worth looking at our website. Join our newsletter and you'll find out all about them as the year goes on.
Oh, beautiful little plug there. Nicely slotted in there. And actually, if anybody wants to find out more about the Stop It Now campaign, we were very privileged to be joined by the Lucy Faithfull Foundation in our very recent forum week. So if you did want to find out more, that webinar is recorded. You can watch the recording of that, which talks all about it. And I think it's a really, really interesting campaign, which has had some really positive outcomes from it. So yeah, do check that out if you want to find out more about that. I think just kind of leading on from that as well, I know a lot of work that's taken up a lot of your time over the last year, particularly in the last few months, are kind of looking at the tools and resources that you've been leading on. So do you want to give us a bit of insight to what you've been working on with those?
Yeah, the biggie, I guess, for most services is the effective support document, which you've been part of as well, Steve. So that again is sort of reflecting on lots of feedback that we've had from Section 11, from audits, from partners, from learning reviews, from other quality assurance work that we've done, from inspections. So there's been absolutely masses feeding into that from all the multi-agency as well, changes and updates and things that are going on everywhere. So significantly, it's not massively changed the threshold. The threshold doesn't change, but it's more about what's in there and does it work? Is it fit for purpose? Do we need to modify it, make it more accessible as well? So we've been looking at that resource. We've been looking at how we can bring it a bit more up to date. We've got a website that functions really, really well. We've had lots of feedback from multi-agency practitioners who said, how can we make it a more agile resource that's more usable? Particularly, ED staff have said, how do we use it in that kind of environment? So that there's real differences in how people will use it. Somebody in a school setting, for example, they'll have lots of opportunity to engage with a child and a family. There's lots of opportunity to read a 49-page, I think it was, document and go through it thoroughly. Someone in an ED, they might have like 5-10 minutes to get to know that family, that child really quickly. And then if they need to complete an EHA, for example, and then go through that indicator document, that's probably quite a challenge. So there's lots of feedback around other parts of the country creating apps to do it, doing online versions. We have our online tool, of course, on the SSCP website, but it was really looking at how can we make that document a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more fit for purpose. And I don't think we've done it probably for a couple of years, so it was due a bit of a shake-up. So we've been really hard at work for a few months now, making sure that that tool is fit for purpose, consulting with our partners as well, so all the partners have a voice in it, making sure that everything's in there that needs to be in there, that it's linking up to all the resources as well, making sure that it's working for some of those, checking concerns, supporting early help assessments, supporting team around the family and all that kind of processes. So that hopefully will come out at some point early next year. This one's looking at roughly 26-ish pages. I've do the page count there because I think that's quite significant. Sometimes people will look at a page count when they open a document. I think it's a more succinct tool. I think we're quite happy with the outcome. What do you think, Steve?
I think so. It is a huge piece of work. I think what we've found, and we found on the last revision as well, is when you really start drilling down to every single descriptor and really questioning it. And we've had so many debates about some of the descriptors in there thinking, well, what does that actually mean? If you're a frontline practitioner, what does that actually say to you? Or actually, is that valid? Should that be in that place? And then going out to our partners to have those wider multi-agency discussions, say, well, actually, this is what we've got at the moment, but what does that actually mean? So yeah, it is a massive piece of work. There will be some changes to come. I'm absolutely sure of that, which we'll get onto in just a second. But for me, I think it's a much more concise document. And although it's been reduced down from, did you say 45 to 26?
It's around 45, 46, 47, something like that. In the
down
40s,
to 20,
the high 40s.
Yeah, down to 26 pages. But also with that's actually making some of the font within the descriptors larger, so that it's easier to read as well. So actually, although it's probably reduced by more than half, I would say. And a lot of it actually was, like you say, listening to feedback that we were receiving saying, actually, no, it's really helpful, but it's a huge document and it takes a long time to go through and read it. If you're going to do it properly, it does take a long time. And it's always trying to strike that balance between it being a comprehensive document that actually has purpose to it, and it's not just a tick box sort of exercise, and it actually supports families, versus making it really clear and succinct. And I think that's what we've tried to hit, that balance in this current version that we've got here. And
not an easy balance to strike, but and significantly as well, I think, for those people that don't use the document very frequently, they might have done some safeguarding training and then not actually use the document for a couple of years because it's just not on their regular use. Some people are using it weekly, in some settings and some positions of work, and daily. Yeah, exactly. But some people, they might have like one incident in their career, possibly. So it's about making it accessible to all those people that it's like second nature. They probably don't even need to read it because they read it so frequently. And those that are very, very new and unsure, and making sure that it is a fit for purpose. It has a level of plain English in it as well, that it's completely understandable. But and there's support routes in there as well. So it's not that we've taken swathes out and have just dumped it. We've actually turned it into a more agile resource on the website. So that will come into play once that document drops as well. Once that goes live, those support pages will be on our website, and those pathways and routes. Significantly, a lot of the feedback we get from audits and talking to frontline practitioners and from learning reviews and from, inspections as well is often pathways. How do we know where to go next? And I'm thinking more, your youth worker or people who aren't working within maybe some of the statutory service, those working outside of the statutory service, they're not going to know it necessarily if they're not around it all the time. So how do we make a resource that fits that whole breadth of people that need that tool? It's not an easy ask, but we need to do it, and we need to make sure that it's functional, that it works, and that we are listening to all of those people and also testing the end result on them as well, making sure that we are doing some focus groups as well. Once we've launched it 6 months down the line, check, see if people are using it, how they're finding it. And it doesn't stay still just because it's going to come out maybe at the end of January or middle of February. That's not the end of its story. It will still evolve, it will still develop, it will still respond to need. So yeah, but it's an exciting piece of work to do. It's nice to give it a little bit of a shake up as well. Use a little bit of technology in it. We've got some QR codes in it. We're making it accessible. So when you print it out, there's not just clickable links that obviously you can't click on if it's a printed resource. We're trying to resolve some of those issues as well and bring some new sections to it as well. So there's going to be a few new bits, even though we've got the pages down. We're adding some new bits in there to support some key themes that have been highlighted by learning reviews and that work that we've been doing in audits as well. So those will be added to that document. I guess significantly, one thing to say at the end of this year is that some of those online resources will disappear in the new year. They won't disappear forever. Hopefully we will bring them back. But again, we just want to check that those resources are right before we then invest on doing the online tools. But yeah, a couple of them will be removed at the end of this year, including the child exploitation screening tool, which is another big piece of work that's gone on this year, and that we will be hopefully launching at the end of January. At the CE conference. That's been quite a task to achieve as well, to make sure that is pitched at the right level and that it's got the right information in it. But again, it won't be a resource that stays still. It will respond to feedback as well. So it will be continually need to evolve to make sure that it is fit for purpose. And again, it will have a pathway alongside it as well, which we're developing around child exploitation, serious youth violence, significantly looking at, again, that early stages in the journey, like what does that look like? How do you use the tool that we're putting in place? And then once you've got the result of that tool, what are the next steps? What can you then do to support that child? What can you do as a practitioner across the service that you're working for? So that one will be coming out in early 2026. So lots of work in 25. Hasn't come out in 25. It will be coming out early 26. But there's lots coming up.
So keep your eyes peeled on that one, and say it won't be long, and those will be published there. So yeah, do keep your eyes on it. And but that's, like I say, that's not the end of it. And I suppose that leads nicely into next year. And I think we're probably, as a business unit at the moment, poised, ready for quite a number of changes to come on the back of some of the legislation, some of the guidance, talking about the effective support document just then. And in terms of the Family First Partnership Programme, particularly the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill coming through, it is going to mean major changes to how services work better together, more effectively together, which is then going to have a knock-on effect as well, potentially to pathways and associated with that, the documents like the effective support document. You mentioned the early help assessment a moment ago. So do you want to talk about, I know we can't say at the moment because we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but what is it we're anticipating that we might be looking to do?
So in the new year, I think we'll know more about it soon. The plans, etc., will be going through, I think, at the end of this year, early next year. So we'll get more of an idea of what the scope of that looks like for Somerset. But in terms of the work that we're doing, it's around making sure that all of our resources, all our policies respond to any changes that are coming through as a result of the Families First partnership program. So I guess we're sort of sitting to wait and see to some extent. We do know, for example, the effective support document will probably have another review sometime around March, April as a result of responding to the changes that are going on in children's services. So yeah, so I guess it's a kind of watch this space for all of us, including us at the moment. We'll just wait and see what that's going to look like. But we'll be communicating that continually again through our website. So again, I would suggest sign up to our newsletter, check out our website, and we'll keep you as updated as possible. There's a page as well on our website that we've added around the Families First Partnership. So if you go onto our website and look under about the partnership, it's under that section there. And it talks sort of briefly about what Families First actually is. There was a consultation in the autumn this year as well. It's closed recently, but there was a lot of feedback requested and a lot of consultation done with families, with young people, with practitioners as well, that's fed into the work that they're doing in Somerset to look at that. But it is a big multi-agency collaborative piece of work, and we'll know more about it in the new year, I think. But it's looking at how we can work more effectively as a multi-agency child protection unit, how we can work and respond more quickly and put that support in to families in Somerset that need it as quickly as we can. And it's a really positive piece of work. And so we'll just wait and see.
It's really exciting, I think. Just in terms of the effective support document, I know you and I have done particularly some work on it in the background. I know people haven't particularly seen much of a change to it in the last kind of couple of years or so, but there has been lots of work in the background. And again, as you were saying a moment ago about the effective support document, and the online version that's going to be taken offline shortly to make sure that everything aligns with the new version of the effective support document. But I know we are also going to be using that as an opportunity to then really hopefully get to grips with the early help assessment and actually how can we integrate that better with our other tools and resources and reduce any duplication and make things a lot smoother and easier for people who are, at the end of the day, very, very busy in their roles. So again, watch this space on that one. Can't say exactly what it's going to look like because we don't know, because we, like I say, we don't know what these changes exactly going to look like, but
yeah, you're right. It's about promoting some of that, isn't it? It's about what the early help assessment is going to look like as a result of knock-on effect of the families first kind of work, but also promoting things like team around the family as well. So there are lots of pathways, there are lots of resources for before you get to the front door of children's services where you can support a family at the earliest stages and if we can support a family there and it never escalates, I mean, that's the ideal, isn't it, really? So it's making sure that we've got all of that in place and that it's working, and that practitioners are telling us as well. They're sort of saying whether things are working or not working for them, and ideas that they might have as well to improve it, because there's no such thing as a bad idea, is there, really? I mean, just throw those ideas out there. I mean, some of them will work, some of them won't work, but it's about making that continual improvement. Things don't stay still, and they shouldn't stay still. They should continually evolve, continually improve.
Definitely. And I guess just to round off then, I know one huge passion of yours that you've taken the lead on, certainly leading into next year, is the work around scrutiny, and in particular the young scrutineers that we're looking at getting in. So do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, young scrutineers. I'm very excited about this. So hopefully in the next year, there's no sort of date on it yet, but we've been working kind of over the last few years as well, working with really great teams in the local authority, such as the participation team and the amazing young people that they work with in Sick and Slick and the Unstoppables and Youth Parliament, and some of the other groups as well that kind of seed into the Youth Forum from, other agencies, so CAMS groups and NHS groups, etc. So we have a really amazing opportunity afforded to us through working with those young people, and they've been brilliant. They've helped us with resources around training resources. We've done some great work with them around understanding what safeguarding is and what that means to young people, to the point where that was even shown at the national panel in London's conference a couple of years ago. To more recently, we've done some work around trauma informed with them to understand what that's like and from their perspective. So we've had some really great opportunities in the past, but what we would like to do more of within the partnership is to bring that kind of young person's voice into the kind of scrutiny process. So we're working on hopefully bringing in some young scrutineers over the next year or so. It might go into the following year. It depends what that kind of looks like, the trajectory of that and the project. But we've got sort of like the early draft of what we want that to look like. And potentially it will happen this year. And then we can get some young person's voice looking at some of these documents, some of the policies, some of the processes, maybe join us on some insight visits as well from a young person's point of view. They can sort of talk to us as well about what their experiences are. They can go and talk to the group. So rather than us going in and talking to young people, they will effectively be young people aged between, we think, probably around 16 and 25-ish, somewhere around that age group. So they can go and work with those groups. We can put some training in for them around leadership skills and how they can work with young people. So yeah, really excited about that. What it looks like, yeah, it's a bit fuzzy around the edges. We're not entirely certain. And when it's going to happen, again, not really sure yet, but it is a bit of a passion project. It's something that I would really like to get off the ground this year and include those young people. So yeah, watch this space.
So in a nutshell, this year's been busy. Next year's going to be really busy as well, but lots of exciting things on the horizon, I think.
It definitely is.
Lovely. Well, thanks for your time, Rebecca. Appreciate that. So particularly at this busy point, building up towards the festive period, where I know you're frantically trying to finish off quite a number of projects before you head off for a little while have a little break from it.
Yes. No, thanks. That's been brilliant. Thanks, Steve. Merry Christmas, everyone.
And I'm really pleased now to introduce somebody to you who, if anybody listened to our Peapod Wrapped from last Christmas, you'll know we interviewed our business manager, Jasmine Walk, at the time. And Jasmine is not with us today, not because she's not in post anymore, but because she's had a very busy year herself, having her first baby. And so I'm really pleased now to introduce you to Margaret Brooks, who has been our What's the best way to put it, Margaret? Not a stand-in business manager.
I don't know if I have a better one than that, actually, Steve. But
No?
yeah, standing in, covering Jasmine's post, maternity cover while she's been away, and yeah, looking forward to rejoining early in 2026.
So, Margaret, thanks so much for joining us today. And I thought it was a really good opportunity, particularly in your role as the business manager, to really kind of give us a broad overview of particularly some of the higher level work that's been taking place, particularly around sort of learning reviews and themes, because I know part of your role is to be very much part of looking at reviews when they take place, both rapid reviews, child safeguarding practice reviews, learning reviews, as well as looking at the bigger picture nationally about some of these changes and how we apply these locally. So let's start off with that. Do you want to give us a bit of an overview about a lot of the learning that you've been involved in over the last year or so since you've been in post, and any themes coming out from that, really?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, there are a lot of themes that have emerged from our learning activity. And the reason I start that with saying learning activity is to recognise this year there's been a bit of a trend of us doing more local learning reviews and fewer rapid reviews. But I think that really takes account of the partnership commitment to learn from activities, learn from incidents that emerge, regardless of if it meets a serious incident threshold. And I think that is quite important to recognise, because partners do put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into reviewing the activity that's happened with families, reviewing the safeguarding from a partnership and a single agency perspective, and then putting in place responsive improvements system-wide and in their own agency. So looking at the whole partnership and single agency. I think over the course of the year, what we've really seen is a lot of interconnected themes that come through, and the interconnected nature of the different projects that we have underway. So maybe like an example that another colleague spoke to you about, I'm sure, is around the information sharing improvements and the work we've done over the last 2 years in trying to help agencies understand their information sharing duties, responsibilities. And still we see, as it has been for, I think, as long as I can remember, a theme coming out of lots of learning reviews that we need to share information effectively, share it at the earliest point, share it about all family members. And I think this year what we've seen is a more nuanced development of that, in terms of it's not the sharing as in the handing over of information that we need to look at. It's the shared sense making of information, and really shifting towards that as a way of thinking about information sharing. A lot of the times we see that agencies are sharing relevant information, with some aspects for improvement for sure, but information shared, but not always coming together around the table to reflect on what does this new piece of information mean in terms of risks, support, needs, etc.
Yeah, and I think that's really key, isn't it? Because I think when you talk about information sharing, like I say, it's been in pretty much every single review that there's ever been. And as people that have ever attended my training will know, I always kind of pick up on that point and say, well, actually, if we just say information sharing doesn't really tell us anything, doesn't actually tell us how we can improve and what does this actually mean, and unless we are quite specific about these things. And I think as a partnership, you're right, we have been really driven to really understand for each individual circumstance, what does that actually mean? Are we talking database systems not talking to each other? Are we talking about individual relationships, professional relationships breaking down? What is it? But like I say, I think really, really honing down from those themes widely, picking out actually information is being shared, but actually are we really understanding, collectively understanding, what does that actually mean, or how do we need to respond to that? Would that sort of be what we're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. It is seeing those system-wide improvements and using technology better to support the sharing of information, so that factual information can be shared between partners and between agencies, but also sometimes even within agencies. For some families, multiple siblings, complex needs, receiving services from different arms of a service as such. How can they make sure that information is shared so that there is that understanding of a family's needs and there's clarity around that, including all of the adults in the family? And that's another piece of interconnected work that we've seen present in lots of reviews about the complexity of family life, and us needing to think about the individual needs and strengths and risks of different adult family members within a family that can also span across different households and sometimes across different local authority boundaries. So that information sharing and use of systems is definitely taking time for us to really reflect on and consider what are system-wide improvements we can make. But also, like you said, how can we actually think about how we together plan and respond to families' needs after we shared information, and also think about, as a group, what are the gaps in information and how do we confirm information rather than taking it as assumed? That's some of the nuanced understanding of what do we actually mean as areas we want information sharing to improve on.
Yeah, and that very much picks up on things like the amendments to Working Together to Safeguard Children, which very much focuses on thinking holistically, understanding a child's lived experiences, and that in itself very much picking up from the national case review for Star and Arthur, whereas identified, okay, we engaged with that immediate household where the child was living or the children were living, but we didn't understand the wider family network in terms of a parent that wasn't in that household, grandparents, and in the case of Star and Arthur. So I think that's really key, thinking about that. And again, it's something that's come up in reviews like The Myth of Invisible Men, think about engagement with fathers and male carers, which I know is work that continues to move forward.
And there are agency challenges in overcoming, like you described, the system limitations, the storing of information, particularly thinking about health records for fathers, for men who are not resident in households, but maybe a new partner that's there for a period of time. There are definitely complex barriers to overcome there. But if we can have that professional curiosity and checking out of information and using as many different ways in, I suppose, to finding about family life as we can, including predominantly talking to families. There's definitely a reliance on written records and agency information, but what do families and children have to tell us? And that's what I mean about that overlap then into children's voice. A new person may come into that family, but actually what does the child say about how they feel about that person, how they appreciate that new adult's involvement in their life, if they feel fearful, if they feel, not safe in that person's company, and what other agencies have done to then explore further to understand what that person's bringing to the household or to the wider child's life. So I think absolutely is about that holistic judgment of a child's circumstances. But just going back to that where, like I said, it's complex. And I think what doing safeguarding in this arena is not getting any less complex. If anything, it's getting more complex. And we need to see system improvements to adapt to that, but also individual practitioners to think about how can we work differently in the face of increasing complexity.
And I guess the other part in terms of information sharing as well is about having a shared language. And we do talk about that quite a lot, but a shared understanding, I guess, around shared language and exactly, being specific, exactly what is it that we are asking of somebody else or what our expectations are, because potentially that could create risk there. So, for example, if we're asking for a police officer to conduct a welfare check, what is it we're actually asking them, or what are we actually expecting from that? Are we expecting a police officer to go into a home and look all around the house and open up the cupboards and see what's in there? Or are we literally understanding them? They'll knock on the door and just say, is the child here? They are. So
absolutely. And that's got to be a cornerstone of partnership work, that clarity and specificity of what is it each agency is looking for one another and how their uniqueness of each agency role fits together to create that network of support around a family. But you can't explore a lot of that without conversations with one another to explore any difference of understanding and seek clarification where it's needed. I think that shared language also helps us to support the next theme that we've really seen as an agency around dynamic risk assessment. So what do we mean by dynamic risk assessment, really? I suppose a question I've faced myself over the last, few months and such, because it's a theme we've talked about a lot, but what sense does that make to the practitioner on the ground responding to a family in front of them? And to me, put kind of in straightforward terms, I think of it as, is my assessment of risk and our assessment of risk of this family's situation and their support needs still current? Has something changed? Is there new information I need to look to and think about again? And do we need to respond differently to safeguard this child now at this point in time, which is perhaps different to what their needs look like a month ago? And I think that's fundamentally what we're asking for when we're talking about a dynamic risk assessment, but that has to include constant and accurate updating and information sharing. Because
we've as a business unit, I think the previous year, we had quite a focus around contingency planning or backup planning, if you like, of, okay, if you might have a plan in place and that's great. If that's not working, what are you going to do differently and when? Whereas with this, it's really kind of it's a further evolution of that, really, when we talk about dynamic risk assessment, in that you might have a plan in place. It could be a fabulous plan, but we need to be responsive to the circumstances and actually adapt, sometimes minute by minute, depending on what the circumstances are, and be confident to say, actually, that's the plan that's in place, but we've got to change that here and now because these circumstances are presenting a different risk potentially.
It absolutely is about that responsivity and fluidity and recognizing, when we talk about complex situations, we're also a lot of the time working with complex people whose behavior may not always be entirely predictable and a lot of the time it's actually unpredictable, but how we factor that into our thinking and recognize it and lean into that to some extent rather than having a rigid plan that we will put in place and follow regardless. There's a saying for it, I can't remember it quite now, but about the best plans are the ones that don't take into account your need to change the plan when you're actually faced with the circumstances you're planning for. Maybe it'll come
There's something about the best laid plans of mice and men or something like that, I think.
I can't remember what it is.
But yeah, absolutely. So any other kind of key learning themes that you've been looking at over the last, since you've been with us?
I would say, linked to what we're talking about, working with difference. So that recognition of families coming in different shapes, different sizes, and the uniqueness of each family unit, their cultural values, their norms and such, how we respond to that and think about that remains a theme within different learning reviews. And just one example would be thinking about blended families. And like we said, how do we understand that the time children spend with different people within their families and the sense they make of that in terms of their identity, etc. also working with people in a trauma-informed way that takes into account their presenting behaviours and what they're communicating to us in the here and now is influenced by what they've experienced in the recent or historic past, and retaining that as our focus and thinking about how all practitioners can support each other really with their responses to children who've experienced trauma, as well as adults who've experienced trauma actually, because different professionals will come from that from a different lens. A police officer might be involved for 20 minutes, 2 hours. A social worker may have been involved with that family for 4 years, for 6 months. The foster care may have been involved with them for many years. So each person's going to have a presence in that child's life, but that presence will influence how much they know about what that child's experienced. So thinking about that and how we can support one another to make sense of the child's presentation in that moment feels quite important as a way of working together professionally, but creating at the core of that some foundations and commitment to trauma-informed work, which the partnership have continued to put efforts into over the last year. And we've seen things like the launch of the trauma-informed website, ongoing success with training uptake. So we can definitely see there is that desire from professionals to work in a trauma-informed way. But I'd say the importance of that continues to emerge from learning reviews.
So before we move on, are there any other kind of points you wanted to highlight around learning at all?
I would say the time it takes for us to implement lasting changes and to take account of the professional keenness that there is within both practitioners and agency leads, strategic leads, to respond to learning that emerges and to respond in a very proactive way. But actually a recognition that to make lasting changes, especially when you talk about system-wide changes, that takes time. And sometimes we need to revisit those initial changes we made, those initial improvements, to consider, were they the right improvements for us to address? Are they sustainable? And also, how will we evaluate their impact? And how do we think about family voice in relation to that as well? And work differently. What do families, children and their parents say to us about how we're working with them and any changes we make to how we work with them? So I think that's been quite a striking theme that's gone throughout the year, the time it takes to make lasting change. And we're making those changes in a context of shifting sands in the wider safeguarding world, I suppose, with Families First partnership very much on our immediate horizon now.
But I think that's important. I always think there's a risk with reviews or with learning in general that there's a risk where it becomes quite tick boxy, and we'll put this action in place. We've done that action, tick the box, fantastic. Let's move on and forget about that now. But actually, I think your point you're making is really key, is actually having lasting change and really, really honing down, is this what we need to do? Is this the right action to have positive change moving forward? Which may, like say, take a longer period of time to put in place, but being brave with that and saying, okay, well, this is going to take a period of time to enact and really embed, but actually it's worth investing that period in time now to get it right, rather than just creating a quick action, tick the box, fantastic, let's move on from it. So I think that's really key for us as a partnership, and I'm sure wider than that, to really think about that in detail of actually what are we trying to achieve here and how do we really effectively achieve it? And like say, in terms of evaluation, how do we actually know it's made a difference once it's all in place?
And I think a step that takes a long time in that process that you've just described is hearing from practitioners on the front line of what might have made a difference to them to respond differently to the types of circumstances that we've seen come up, and how might their agencies and the partnership work around children work more effectively in the future if faced with a similar circumstance. Because there's very rarely, I would say, a very simple answer that we can have come up to us in response to that question of what would make a difference. What would be the difference that made a difference for this family? I think that's usually quite complex and multi-layered answers that we get back to that. But the important thing for me is, what do the practitioners say about the types of tools, resources, guidance, support that will make a difference to them if faced with similar circumstances in the future, and recognising the significant efforts they're already putting into safeguarding families, and sometimes things haven't worked out in the way they'd hoped, the plans haven't worked with the effectiveness they'd hoped that they would have. But recognising the impact that process has on them, but also their commitment, is what I've seen repeatedly, their commitment to learn from that and to come with a positive mindset towards that journey of change, and recognising in most circumstances like those that we have come forward for learning reviews, there's still some opportunity for reflection and for thinking about ways of working differently.
So I think, obviously we've picked up around learning reviews locally and more formally rapid reviews, child safeguarding practice reviews, those kind of themes that have come out from those. I guess there's a couple of other bits that you've been sort of quite focused on. One is continuing the work around the JTI inspection that took place some time ago now, which is the Joint Area Inspection, if anybody's not aware of that, which focused on serious youth violence and exploitation. Do you want to give us a bit of an update on that work?
Yeah, I think that is a good example, Steve, of how much time it takes to make system-wide improvements, because some of the elements of the plan that responded to the JTI were at a point of evaluation of, and there's been already changes put in place to structures and pathways from a partnership perspective. However, what we've learned on the way is that those partnership pathways do need to be clearer to professionals on the ground, and things like the screening tool need to be more accessible, need to be suitable for people to use in busy environments. They need to be able to overcome tech barriers for people who sometimes are working in, for example, ward settings, don't have access to laptops. Sometimes people are using paper, etc. That complexity I was referring to earlier also relates to the professional context that people are working in. And that has added on time to get to a solution or get to a way of working in a set of tools and guidance that will hopefully work for all. I think that's one of the problems, or not as much problems, but challenges of the partnership, that we're trying to design partnership solutions that work for lots of different professions and disciplines. So that does take time. But our hope is that the tools and the pathways that are due to launch in the new year will better meet the needs of that wider group, and that for other improvements that have been made to working together around the theme of serious youth violence and exploitation, we will have the opportunity to evaluate what difference has some of the changes that have been put in place made. And we'll have to approach that with honesty, with openness, and a willingness to continually learn about what is working better, but where are we still seeing some stuckness within the system or some challenges about implementing the changes we wanted to see.
Thank you for that update. It's really good to hear. And I think if we're kind of moving back once again, kind of to broader view, obviously we don't just look at local learning, but we also look at national learning and recommendations that are made. And I know previously we've spoken to the National Child Safeguarding Practice Review Panel. In fact, I think that was your first podcast that you're involved in when we did our live podcast with Sally Shearer from the National Child Safeguarding Practice Review Panel, talking about the national review I wanted them all to notice on the subject of child sexual abuse. And I know that's an area, so you joined us for the previous podcast on that review, because that's an area you've been quite heavily involved in your time with this. So do you want to give us a bit of a flavour of that as well?
The work we've done around strengthening responses to child sexual abuse, I think one of the key successes actually has been to move from it being a aspect of activity early in 2025 that I think the business unit was keen to progress and to propose solutions to partners, towards a place where we've got real partnership ownership of those actions. I think that's really important. We've got a commitment to that staying in place over the coming year, but also different ways of working and thinking about how can we regionalise approaches as well. So what is it that we may be doing in Somerset that we want to look to partners elsewhere in the region and offer support to and also seek support from? So I think that's, especially for Avon and Somerset Police that are working over quite a wide patch, they'll have those insights as to what's working well in one area and where there's areas for improvement in another. So understanding that. But I think very recently, so only in December now, very recently, a few weeks ago, we had the Forum Week. That was a project and a piece of work that required significant planning and investment from all partners and the business unit to bring to life. But seeing the reach that had across many hundreds of practitioners and the appetite and desire from practitioners on the ground to have tools that spoke better to their needs was really, I think, important, and really gave us that reassurance, I suppose, that we are putting our energy in the right places. That was a helpful takeaway for me from that session, and also the focus that we had back in the themes from the surveys that we've completed, that we got really wide reach out from, also tells us that the pathways that are being developed, the policies being developed, that is what practitioners are asking for. That's what's needed on the ground. So that kind of tying together and that closing of the loop of what are we learning and what are we putting in place, and then asking ourselves, how well does that respond to the original asks in the I wanted them to notice? And I think for me, I feel like actually in Somerset, we have noticed, we've taken account and we've got a plan that we'll put in place. And we've also got work planned and in the pipeline to work with survivors of abuse to ask them, do they think this is the right type of direction? Would this be the type of system improvements they think would make a difference to people who've experienced what they have?
No, I think there's some really exciting changes and developments, I would say, on the horizon that we're very much working towards and looking forward to next year to really kind of looking to make those improvements. And just picking up there as well, you mentioned some of the regional work. So obviously we do work with our regional partners, both across the Southwest and more closely, I would say, probably with our Avon and Somerset partnerships around that. And some of that focus you've been doing has been very much around that partnership development across the region. So what's that been looking like?
Yeah, so I think very recently we had the Section 11 audit, which provided an opportunity for practitioners for leaders across the region to come together and to really reflect on what's working well, and based on what we learned from previous year's Section 11 activity, where are we learning that the system is improving, and that will help signpost us to what we need to focus on over the next coming year and ahead of that, really, with this being a 3-year cycle. But thinking about where are we seeing in Somerset problems take a especially unique shape, And how does that mirror or look similar to our colleagues across North Somerset, Bristol, etc., the wider region? I think activities such as that really provide that useful pause for thought and pause for reflection on that. And it does help us offer some challenge to ourselves, I suppose, about of our tools, of our guidance, of our training, how much of that does need to stay unique to Somerset and how much of it can we support a more regionalised approach, and how can we learn from our partners in other areas that may have started some improvements, some system changes a little earlier on, and where can we lend our support where we might be a bit further ahead. So I think that is useful learning that we have to now reflect on. We're just at the stage of analysing some of the themes from that. So that will give us a good steer into the new year about opportunities for regional work. And also the Families First Partnership will ask all agencies in the area to be making changes to how we're working together. So I think that also provides a good opportunity for pause for reflection around what is different, what is unique, and where could there be less variation that might support those practitioners that, for example, Avon and Somerset Police, who work over a wide geographical patch, but also other practitioners who, people change jobs, they move from one area, they move to another. And often, as we mentioned earlier, families with members in different households, it's not that uncommon for their households to split across local authority boundaries. So the better we understand how each area works, the better place we are to support effective information sharing, effective safeguarding overall. So I think that's something there's a lot of appetite and interest for going into the new year. And looking a bit more locally, I think that keenness to work together also extends to our own partnerships within Somerset. So thinking about how do we work across the adults and children divide that's sort of ever present, but also with our colleagues in the Safer Somerset Partnership to think about contextual harms, safeguarding outside of immediate households and within communities. Children and families, they don't live in their households in a vacuum, they live within part of a wider community. So understanding how can those investments made in one partnership have different benefits across the partnership and across the lifespan.
Kind of leads on nicely, really, looking into next year. Part of that, you mentioned the Family First Partnership Programme, right on the horizon now. And part of that obviously keys in with changes to legislation and guidance. We have the Children's Welfare and Schools Bill going through at the moment, and there's the Crime and Policing Bill. Just picking up on the first one on that, though, in terms of the Children's Welfare and Schools Bill, it does very much talk about that partnership working, but also looking at education colleagues and how we better include those, and actually stipulating for the first time that education should become a fourth statutory safeguarding partner. And I know, again, you've been doing lots of work on that over the last number of months now, sort of looking at how we better structure the partnership within Somerset moving forward, but also how we really value that role of education as a statutory safeguarding partner.
Yeah, it's been an area of quite significant work across, when I say education, I mean the different arms and different spheres of education, because I think that's exactly one of the barriers that safeguarding partnerships across the country, I'm sure, find when we talk about education as a fourth partner. Who is it, or what is it we actually mean when lots of schools are functioning as academy trusts? We have also in the local authority different elements of education services and education duties that are delivered, and also when we think about working with children with special educational needs. So that sphere of education runs quite wide.
Oh, it's huge, isn't it? I know. Yeah. I think that's what the government have very openly said from day one is we value education. We want education to be a statutory safeguarding partner. We're just not too sure how.
Very, very challenging. So this year we have seen a change in our education executive role. So that's been handed over to Matt Clinkard, who came in post in recent months. So that's been a great start to the journey with him, and we're really hopeful about what that relationship will bring to fruit over the coming months and year. One of the changes we've made in working with Matt has been to look at how we can have education representatives, and I use that word representatives quite widely, thinking about from your DSLs, your head teachers, like you've mentioned, childminders, those that work in the Education Safeguarding Service. How can we have that range of different education voices represented across our structures? So we've made some great headway with colleagues across education this year in thinking about what we might want that to look like in the coming year. And already I can think of specific examples where having the voice of an education rep in the room made a real difference. Just where we were drafting tools, pathways, having that voice of education say, actually, this doesn't work for a school setting for these reasons. That really helped steer our direction in a different way, really, because prior to that voice being concerned, we were kind of going down one pathway and being quite clear this was the direction of travel that would be useful to practitioners. And actually, as soon as we had the education person in the room, we really recognised the dominance of maybe other professional voices or the assumptions that might exist, because, a social work rep isn't doing the same job day to day as an education rep, who's not doing the same job day to day as a health rep. And we have that same complexity in the health system within what do we mean by a health rep? Are we talking about a GP? Are we talking about someone working in midwifery services, or somewhere else in the whole spectrum in between? So kind of changes locally to ICB, to NHS structures will also come to kind of bear over the coming year as well. So that'll be something for us to think about. But I think we're starting that from a great foundation of established relationships and commitment and good representation across our structures as a partnership from the whole health sector.
And anything else we got in the pipeline as well?
Just thinking ahead to the new year. So decisions and hopefully planning towards a conference would be a really exciting opportunity for us to bring everyone together. Hopefully we can work in that direction and bring that to life. We're already at the place now of making kind of more substantive ideas and formulated ideas towards the planning of our conference. That would be, I think, really a welcome addition. Thinking about the Families First Partnership and how we bring partners together to think about what that means for them uniquely and to act on as well, using that as a springboard really to act on some of the learning we've had around working with families at the earliest point that challenges emerge. So thinking about how helpful is our early help guidance, is our team around the family guidance, early help assessments, how helpful is that and how can we take account of some of the challenges that practitioners have fed back to us and make changes to make those processes more workable for practitioners, but so they can fundamentally support families and children better in the future. So I think those are two things. And sadly, I won't get to see some of this work come to fruition because we'll be welcoming Jasmine back in the new year as our business unit manager, the post holder. So that'll be great for her to take the lead with some of this as we move forward into February and beyond.
Absolutely. And I guess that was going to be my only other thing to say as well, is that obviously moving into next year, early next year, you will be moving on to Pastors New. I did want to just take this opportunity, I think, coming out from this and looking into next year, just to thank you for all your hard work. And it's a lot to take on, particularly in a short space of time when you are covering somebody's maternity leave. And it's a lot to get your head around in terms of partnership working and, like I say, the workings of the partnership, working with the business unit and each of the individual partners, individual unique circumstances and how you pull all that together. And I have to say, in your time with us, you've been very, very tenacious and really kind of driven a lot of things forwards. Yeah, I think on behalf of myself and the rest of the business unit, just wanted to thank you very, very much for all of the work you put in the last, is it a year? No, 10 months.
No, just 10 months. How time flies by.
Months.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Stu. That's really, really good to hear. And for me, it's been a great opportunity to understand at a deeper level, really, how partnerships function together and how, when in my different roles, I've utilised tools and resources that partners have produced and sometimes had input into those. But actually seeing that whole journey from where we start to see there's a theme that needs some response to the end kind of product and guidance or tool for practitioners, that's been a really interesting opportunity to see that whole pipeline and to bring some projects to an end that have been, on our kind of to-do list for some time. So that's been great, and hopefully they'll make a difference for children, families and practitioners as they're launched and in the coming months and year.
Absolutely. So thank you for taking the time now to join us today prior to having a bit of a break over Christmas. And say on behalf of myself and the rest of the business unit, I know, just to wish you all the best of luck moving forward with everything.
Thanks. And thanks to all of yourselves for being such good colleagues over the last year as well and making me so welcome. And I'd also extend that to wider partners as well. A lot of patience on their part to explain the background they've probably explained many times to other people prior. So yeah, thanks for the patience with that.
Great stuff. Well, lovely. Thank you very much. And thanks for joining Kate today, and take care.
No problem. Thank you.
So there you have it. That is once more the SSCP's Business Unit 2025 P-Pod wrapped. All wrapped up nicely and sitting underneath your tree, ready for Christmas Day. I hope it's been a useful insight for you to sort of see some of the workings of both the wider partnership and of each of the individual members of the business unit, who thank you again for all of the team for taking part in today's recording. Now, there are two other people who aren't actually part of the business unit, but are very much part of the P-Pod. And for anybody who's ever listened to any previous episodes, and especially for those of you who listen right to the very end of the podcast, there are a couple of voices that you would have heard and may not quite know who they are. But they did want to come along and be part of the P-Pod Wrapped for you this year. So I'm very pleased to introduce a couple of mini Macabees who wanted to give you a little special message today. And to the 3,668 people that have attended our training and events over this last year, and the 11,000 people that have listened to the P-Pod since the 1st of January 2025, as well as, of course, all of the members of the SSCP subgroups, all of the partners we've worked with, all of the agencies, all of our regional colleagues. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working with you over the last year. And we just wanted to wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Now, I did start off saying in this episode that almost everybody was doing a 2025 wrap these days. And actually, the software that we use to record this when we're doing online recordings is no different. And I couldn't resist rounding off because their 2025 wrapped version produced the most spoken words on the P-Pod, and I couldn't resist bringing that to you to round things off. So, thank you very much, everybody that's been listening throughout this year. We're going to have a short break now while we record some more episodes for you, which will be available later on in early 2026. We are currently working with our partners across the country to bring you many, many more episodes. So, hang fire. There will be some more episodes out shortly. So, here you have it, the 2025 most spoken words from the P-Pod. Children.
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 Children. Children.
Children.
Children.
Children.
Children. Children.
Children.
Children.
Children.
Children.
Children.
Children. Children.
Children.
There he is.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us here this year, and we look forward to you joining again in 2026 at the P-Pod.
Let's work together to help keep children safe.